So this vice is probably 40, 50 years old, maybe more. Made in England. This is an old Black & Decker drill, still going strong. Made in 1984, it's older than I am, made in England too. Yesterday was my birthday. Now, there's not many things I really need in life, but I've wanted a workshop vice for a while. I did look at some of the new ones for sale on eBay, on Amazon. They all looked pretty much cheap, made in China or made in India vices, poorly cast, poorly made, poorly machined. This is the UK, so, you know, made in England really used to mean something. There was a time when if a product was made in England, it was one of the best, or if not the best machined product in the world. So I picked up this old vice, found it on eBay. It's probably 50, 60, maybe more years old. It just really is like a lovely old made in England bit of kit, you know, bulletproof, built to last. So I picked that up, and when we talk about being prepared for things, whether it's an economic collapse, whether it's another pandemic, whether it's just, you know, maybe you lose your job and you find yourself in a different scenario, it's easy to think, well, it's easy to think in terms of being prepared, like, you need a lot of food, or maybe you're going to bug out your house, or you're going to bug in. It's easy to think of things like that, but maybe a collapse might not happen like that. It's probably less probable that it will happen like that than maybe just being a continued decline. We're going through a very unstable economic period at the moment. Potentially we're going to quite an inflationary environment, possibly hyperinflation. When you look at the amount of money that not only the Bank of England are printing, but the European Central Bank, the Fed in America, the Bank of Japan, that every nation is pretty much doing it. We could get to a point where inflation just runs away, you know, hyperinflation, or at least severe inflation, where buying new things, buying new products will be difficult. That is a very real scenario, and it's a scenario that I am personally think is quite possibly going to happen. It's not definite, but it's quite possible we could find ourselves in that sort of scenario. In that sort of scenario, you want to be a person that can work well with your hands, you know, be able to fix things. If someone's got an old car or an old appliance that's broken, it needs, you know, welding together. You know, I've got a cheap stick welder. It's not particularly pretty, but it will provide a strong weld between two bits of metal. So if a neighbor, you know, if we're in a high inflation or a hyperinflationary environment and a neighbor wants their exhaust fixing on the car, it's not a problem. I've got like a little micro workshop. I mean, the shed I set up in my garden, it's not big. It's probably 7 foot by 5 foot, probably something like 2 meters by 1.5 meters. It's quite small, but I've got the bench in there now. I've now got the workshop vice in there. You know, I can run power to it from the house. So in a scenario like an economic collapse in a high inflationary environment where we are no longer importing things from overseas, we're not importing, you know, cheap goods from China, you know, from Asia, I will have the ability to fix things, to repair things, to weld things, to fix cars, to fix domestic appliances. It gives me a lot of capability. You know, the job market is shaky now. Just for an example, there's been a job that I've wanted for quite a few years now. I jumped through all the hoops last year to do it. I did all the online application, did the pre-screening, did the assessment days, did the interview, did well, aced everything. Got the job just before the contract's being signed. Coronavirus hit, and now I don't know if that job will come through now. I don't know if there's a start date. I don't know if it's no longer needed. The world is it's a fickle place. Things change quite easily. So even having that micro workshop in my garden, it gives me the ability to make money. I can fabricate small little things. I can fix little bits and bobs. You know, I'm relatively good at working on cars. I can provide myself even just by buying like 200, 300 pound bangers, you know, welding them up, fixing the seals, getting the brakes work, whatever it needs to be, getting MOT on it, and just double the money. In a scenario, it's not something I'm doing at the moment, but in a scenario, I potentially could provide for myself and my family doing basic jobs like that. So, basically the point of this video is I've set myself up a little micro workshop in the garden. I think it's ace. It's not the biggest workshop in the world. If you've got big land, if you've got a barn or something you can like allocate to having an area where you can fix things, great, do that. I would seriously recommend it with the way the world's going at the moment. If you live in an apartment, say, and you're like, well, you don't have a garden or you don't have somewhere where you could set a little workshop up, think of other avenues. You know, maybe you're a sort of person you're good at cooking. Maybe you can buy all the, you know, chefware stuff that you could bulk cook food, and maybe you can sell those. A lot of people sell that on Facebook Marketplace, things like that. You know, what I'm saying is the world's becoming an increasingly unstable place, but if you can give yourself the ability to provide a good or service that you can exchange for money, if not for other goods and services, you're setting yourself up well for the problems that could come quite soon. I think we could see ourselves in quite a big financial meltdown quite quickly. If certain things go wrong at the right time, or certain things go wrong at the wrong time, we could find ourselves in a very big, sticky situation. And the more you can do, yeah, it's great having, you know, 10 bags of rice, it's great having a bug out bag, but the collapse won't necessarily be like that, right? It's more probable that it'll be a long, slow decline in like living standards as inflation gets, you know, picks up and picks up. It doesn't have to be hyperinflation either. It could just be, you know, inflation of 50% a year or 100% a year. You know, prices double every year. It will quickly reduce how much we, you know, can import from overseas, because products will just get more and more expensive. We'll have to start fixing things. So that's it. I've got a little micro workshop set in my garden. I'm quite good with my hands, so that really works for me. If you're good at sewing, if you're good at cooking, if you're good at, I don't know, think of the skill you're good at and probably look at how you can adapt that for your life as the situation in the world hopefully doesn't get worse, but realistically I think things are probably going to get worse before they get better anytime soon. Thanks for watching this video, guys. As always, leave me any comments on what you're doing. What's your angle? Do you think we're facing a big economic collapse? Am I blowing this out of all proportion? I don't know. Let us know your thoughts and opinions on this one. Just bear in mind the central banks are printing a lot of money, and historically when they do this, big problems accumulate further down the road. Thanks for watching this video, guys. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions, and I'll see you next time.